Open Your Eyes is brought to you by the Belize Bank. Our country, your bank.
Welcome to Open Your Eyes.
Start your morning right.
I'm Marlene Cuellar.
And I'm Gavin Courtney.
And thank you for joining us this morning.
Yep, it's a beautiful Thursday morning. Yeah. Sunrise was looking really nice.
Oh my gosh, and the wind
is
just such a great start to a day. I keep on saying, stay like this Easter, because this is what we need.
For sure. And we're going to be getting right into that soon as we bring you our weather update.
Yeah.
And, I'm really hoping for good news as we head into this weekend, because it's like the long weekend.
It's not Easter yet.
I know. Well, I'm getting ready.
All right, we got Francisca on the line. Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you today?
I am great, thanks. And how about you guys?
We're doing great. And we're excited to hear about this forecast this morning. So let's get into our general situation.
Okay, well, we have fair and dry conditions, and that will support sunny skies today, clear skies tonight, and I am going for no rainfall.
All right, that's what we like to hear. And our winds?
Okay, so we'll be seeing east to southeasterly winds, 10 to 20 knots with higher gusts, and that will produce moderate to rough seas. So we have a small craft caution in effect.
Okay. And what about our temperatures for today?
Okay, a bit on the high side, so we're seeing 89 along the coast this afternoon, 86 up in the Maya Mountains, and 97 inland. So we also have our heat alert for people, especially those in the interior of the country.
Oh, yes. And what about our outlook as we head into Friday night? As we head into Friday, sorry.
Okay, for
we know where Gavin is, right?
Friday night, right?
Yes, for Friday and Friday night, I'm seeing similar weather conditions. Okay. So it's that time of the year, as we say, right?
Oh, yeah.
Getting into the dry season.
You just send that memo out and say, stay like this until after Easter.
Okay, I'll try my best.
All right. And that heat advisory, of course, people should stay indoors and stay hydrated.
That is so, and we are saying that if they don't have to be outside, just remain out inside or in the shade.
All right.
Okay, well, Francisca, thank you so much for that update.
Okay, just one more, please.
Sure.
Our fire forecast.
Yes.
So currently, the fire risk is very, very high. So we're advising the public to be very careful. Our satellite picture showed over the the past 24 hours that we had several fires around the country. So, just appealing to the public to be very careful.
Okay.
That's right.
Yes. Well, thanks for that reminder. That's very important.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
So, Francisca, we hope you have a good day.
Thanks, and same to you guys.
All right. Thank you so much.
All right, bye.
Sure. Bye.
All right, so the wind stays, the heat returns, but really important warning there for people inland that it is going to be peaking at about 97. It's going to be very warm. If you can stay indoors, please do. If you have to be outside, try to make sure you take some time in the shade and stay hydrated.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. We're going to keep things moving this morning and get into some motivation for today, which means it's time for our eye opener. And our eye opener, taken from dailyom.com, goes like this. Your destiny may be waiting for you, but whether or not you meet your destiny is up to you. There are those of us who believe that our lives are predestined and that we should resign ourselves to our lots in life. Yet, the truth is that it is up to each one of us to decide what that destiny will be. While each of us is born with a life purpose, it is up to us whether or not we will say yes to fulfilling it. And just like when we choose what to eat, who to keep company with, and whether to turn right or left when we leave our home every day, choosing to say yes to your destiny is a decision that can only be realized when you take action to make that choice a reality. Remembering that the decision to fulfill your destiny is always a choice can be empowering. Knowing you are fulfilling your destiny because you want to rather than because you have to can make a huge difference. When you're freed from obligation, obstacles in your way become challenges to be overcome, and the journey becomes an adventure rather than the obligatory steps you're being forced to take. Your destiny may be waiting for you, but whether or not you meet your destiny is up to you. Your fate is in your hands.
That's an interesting one, and it would almost seem contradictory in the sense that most people tend to think of destiny and fate as things that you have absolutely no control over. And I think that what this is getting at is that if you have an idea or you have a certain feeling that you can go with that, and I think it's what it's getting at is saying that you may, like, let's say whether it's through goals that you have that you want to achieve, and you either career-wise or personal-wise, maybe you want to have a family, or maybe you want to do something, and a lot of times that can you have some things in your head and it can seem like a lot of work, because of course everything that we want to accomplish it involves a lot of work, and so. Yeah. You can think of that as, getting there as, like a burden and a challenge and something that you really have to, work hard to overcome. Or you can think about it in the same way that Eye Opener suggests, talking about when you think about it, and then it can be something enjoyable, and you think about the whole experience or the ride of getting to whatever it is your destiny is, or what you think your destiny is, then the whole process can become much less challenging, and I'm trying to find the word that I'm thinking, but in a challenging in a negative way, versus positive, and I think that that's what it's getting at. And you do have those choices every single day. When you get out of bed and you have to go to work, or you have to do whatever it is that you have to do, you make breakfast, if you have to cook for your kids or whatever. Those things, of course, can seem like chores, but it can be all part of the whole journey if you think about it like that, and it can definitely be a positive experience.
Yeah, no, I love that the Eye Opener reminds us of something that I know a lot of us like to have, which is control over our own lives. Mm-hmm. And for me, I think you're right. When we think of destiny, it feels predetermined, like we're just gonna fall onto this path and go along with it because that's what our destiny is. Yeah. And what it does is really flip that. It really shows you that there is a choice that you make along the way as to which path you're going to go on, and how long you're going to continue along that way, how hard you're going to work to get to the end, and recognizing that it's something that you choose. So you're creating your own destiny, and that's, I love when you said that it's one of those things that you have to recognize that it just doesn't happen. Yeah. You gotta work for it. So looking at the Eye Opener, it's something that we all need to be reminded of every now and again.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that when we think, the end goal, or what it is that you think your destiny is, I think that a lot of the choices that you make can decide, what that is, because your destiny doesn't necessarily have to be something that's like specifically defined. I think, it's not like, all right, I'm going to, let's take it back to the whole, relationship thing, because, a lot of people have ideas, from very young about what it is they want. They're like, all right, so, in their partner, somebody will be like, okay, well, I think that, I want, my ideal partner is this, and you think about, height, hair color, all sorts of things that, at the end of the day, you don't have any control over a certain thing. So you can't think that, all right, there's this 100% person that's in your mind. But, if you have an idea that, all right, I want to have a partner, and a family, and then you think about certain things that are important to you, and then you make a conscious effort to like maybe find people like that, or find people that you have things in common with, then you're realizing your destiny in a way that, even you're just deciding the basic things. You have control over what you like, but then you don't have control beyond a certain point. And as long as you stay open-minded, then the journey doesn't become like frustrating and like when you don't find what it is, and then you think about moving through everything like that. So that's just one example that
one
comes to
of
mind.
many, one of many. And I love it says it so clearly. That your destiny is there, but are you going to meet it?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So that's our eye opener for this morning. And there's a lot to chit-chat about, of course, this morning. But we know that yesterday we found out from Cabinet that the proposal for the reopening of schools, something that has been approved. There is a phased approach. I know there's a lot of buzz about it. I've heard from teachers. I've heard from parents. And they're just trying to figure out, what does this mean? Does this mean I need to be ready in, 2-3 weeks to get my children back to school? So I know there's a lot of clarification that has to be made.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course, as Marlene said, that it is going to be happening in phases, and it seems as though the information that the ministry has released so far suggests that at least in the first phase, there's going to be a lot of flexibility, really. And clearly, one of the messages that there's no one-size-fits-all approach to the reopening of schools. So things are going to be looked at on an individual basis. Schools at this point, or at least I should say when the phase 1 rolls out, are going to actually have to apply to fully open. There has to be certain criteria that will need to be met, and we'll get more details about what those will be as time goes by. And of course, it's important to also note that information like this is going to be coming directly from the ministry or from different sources within the ministry. So, and of course, we'll keep you updated on that. But I think one of the messages that also came about yesterday was to try and focus, because there's a lot of confusion. Well, not confusion. Let's say it was like kind of a surprise message. So there's a lot of information coming from a lot of different sources. So people have to be mindful and be wary of that as well.
Well, I mean, I think that the reaction is natural from teachers and parents. I've heard from parents who's like, I got to find, everything to get my child back to school. And I think that's also one thing that we have to be extremely mindful of. We still have people who are either unemployed or at reduced salaries. And so the economic situation is completely different. And then you also have, I think, the situation where the schools have to prepare as well. They did mention that it's the shift or staggered approach that may be used, which was something, if we go back to 2020 and remember all that happened, that was one of the things that was proposed, and most schools had started to put those things in place. It is a short window for preparation. My suspicion is that some schools are perhaps already ready, but it's going to be interesting to see how it works out. And let's not forget, the unions are still in negotiation about a salary cut. So to have an additional responsibility here, I wonder how this will play out as well in that conversation. But it is, I think, a recent announcement that people are still asking a lot of questions, and I'm hoping they'll get some more clarification today. While they say phased, is it primary school? Is it all schools? Is it secondary schools? And what will be the qualifiers for people to be able to move to that point of reopening? Yeah,
of course, and this is an issue that is going to affect thousands of people of course, considering how much how much of a young population that we do have. And especially when we think about preparedness for getting back, we also we think about the schools and the teachers, but the children themselves. And I'm using that term very loosely because we may be talking all the way up to tertiary level, so it could include adults, of course. So everybody has, I think, established some sort of a routine by now in terms of the at-home instruction. So getting children and other people who are in school prepared for getting back to face-to-face teaching is also going to be significant, and we have to see how that plays out as well.
It's also a key time to remind people that the rollout for the vaccination does include teachers at the phase that we are right now. So it's a good time for teachers to go out and get vaccinated and start to get some level of protection. And that is really instrumental, especially in ensuring their safety if they're going to return to school within the next month or 2 months. All right, but we'll keep following that story. We'll have an update for you tonight in our newscast at 6 p.m. And as another reminder, we had told you earlier, March 23rd was the 1-year anniversary since our first reported case of COVID-19 in Belize. And we have been telling you that we have a special news report. It's an extended report that looks back at the entire year, the first year, I should say, of the pandemic. From panic to pandemic, COVID-19, 1 year later. It's going to be airing tonight at 8 p.m. Of course, you can catch it live on Channel 5, streaming on Facebook, and streaming on YouTube. And on our continued coverage here on Open Your Eyes, we've been trying to talk about different perspectives since this is the 1 year anniversary since our first confirmed case. And we spoke with people who survived COVID. We spoke with the medical professionals. Yesterday we had an extensive conversation about tourism 1 year later and the state that they're in. And today our conversation is going to be focused on Belize's National Referral Hospital, the KHMH Memorial Hospital. And we'll hear from them directly how things are 1 year later and what the plans are moving into year 2.
Yeah. Absolutely. And then after that, we are going to be having a conversation with we are going to be talking about an exciting new platform that released some data. And we're talking all about so we're going to be speaking with representatives from UNICEF all about that, and they're going to be releasing some results from a survey that was done, and it actually covers a whole lot of different information. So we're going to get into the breakdown of that in our second conversation.
And the final part of our show, we're going to be talking to DFC. They have some new products and services that they're going to be offering. And who can be able to access them and how you can access them. That's what we're going to find out in the final part of our show. But to set the context for our reflection with KHMH or the representatives of KHMH, we're going to take a look back at a story that our news team did in January. And this was taking a look at the facility and the work that was ongoing there while they still were treating patients with COVID-19. So we'll take a look at that now.
In mid-January 2020, local health officials became aware of an unusual respiratory illness that was quickly spreading across China. At the time, there wasn't much that was known about the virulent disease other than the fact that it was thought to be natural and had originated from animals through what is known as a spillover event. Chief Executive Officer Michelle Hoare of the KHMH Memorial Hospital Authority recalls her first COVID-19 notification.
In January of 2020, I received a text message that there may be admissions coming from the Philip Wilson International Airport to KHMH with a diagnosis of COVID. What will be our response? Will we be able to accept these cases? And I was like, are we there already?
By early February, the United States began recording COVID-19 casualties, and that's when Belize took serious note of the propagation of the novel coronavirus.
We started, of course, I organized a meeting with my management team. Of course, we've been tracking the news internationally. And so I organized a meeting with the management team to say, listen, this thing is getting serious. COVID wasn't even declared a pandemic yet, but we needed to start at least planning what would be our response in the event it is declared a pandemic. Because we know that once it's declared a pandemic, border countries affected, Belize will be at risk.
Part of that planning included the establishment of the COVID-19 unit, an entity within the National Referral Hospital dedicated to patients who either tested positive for the disease or were under investigation as potential cases.
We receive all COVID positive patients who are in distress. We manage them here. We have a bed capacity of 23 that we can house, and we have a bed capacity of 13 that we can hold for patients who are under investigation. That means that they're not positive yet, but we are waiting for the results.
Belize's first COVID-19 case was recorded in March of last year. However, the first person to be admitted for treatment came sometime thereafter as a referral from the Western Regional Hospital. By then, KHMH had been prepared, having already procured the necessary equipment, including ventilators, and retrofitted the facility to accommodate COVID patients.
The plan was to prepare an isolation critical care space. That meant in terms of resource that we had to provide the required oxygen support. We had to prepare the necessary ventilators, infusion pumps, cardiac monitors, and those types of equipment. And so we started our procurement process for ventilators, KHMH as an authority. And again, sharing with Ministry our plans, they were able to provide additional support. So we started initially with 4 additional ventilators for critical care, COVID critical care management, and the ministry quickly procured an additional 6 for us.
Those breathing machines were placed here, in the wing of the hospital that was once the accident and emergency section. This area has been modified to treat patients with varying degrees of COVID-19 related illness. Notwithstanding the medical equipment and beds that are presently available at the unit, lack of human resources remains an issue.
One of our biggest challenges, of course, is because we have a lot of patients and we have limited amount of nurses. So our human resources is one of our biggest challenges that we are facing right now. Problem that we probably had in the past, like not having enough equipment and having enough cardiac monitors. We are not seeing that as a challenge, but more of human resources aspect.
Late last year, when a significant increase in the number of cases was recorded, the health system became overwhelmed. The ratio of nurses and doctors to patients suffering from COVID-19 was severely lopsided.
The demand on the human resource was really challenging, because we saw more and more that now the country was in a response mode, not only KHMH, and so as other areas within the health sector, the public health sector, ran into their own set of challenges because of exposures, because of quarantine, whatever, we had to sit down and actually share resources, and human resource became a part of that sharing.
Cuba's Henry Reeve International Medical Brigade arrived in country to lend assistance with Belize's COVID response. However, coupled with a mounting death toll, the situation, particularly for frontline personnel, became dire. Not all were prepared to mentally cope with what they were experiencing firsthand, and at times, it proved too much to bear.
Seeing patients die, sometimes we would hear from them, what they go through to just see patients die each time, and it became very challenging, it became hard on them. And so that level of psychological support, we had to intervene by providing that level of counseling, whether it's one-on-one, whether it's through peer support or specialist intervention. We had to find a way to support the staff.
Casilda Bowman is head of the COVID-19 Patients Under Investigation Unit. She's seen it all where patient mortality is concerned.
It's hard when we lose patients. I see the psychological effects that most people don't get to see on the outside, They see us come to work, but they don't understand how hard it is, One, we are away from our families. because we have to self-isolate. And 2, we do form some sort of attachment to our patients. Even though we're in a suit, they can't see us as much, but we do have a connection to them. And when they don't survive, it really impacts us.
Reporting for News 5, I am Isane Cayetano.
All right, and that was a reflection looking at a story that was done in January of this year. We are going to take a break, and with that, to put it into context, we're going to be talking to representatives of the KHMH Memorial Hospital about COVID-19 1 year later. So please stay tuned.
If we are only as strong as our families, businesses, institutions, and the communities that surround us, then by giving businesses the power to grow, entrepreneurs the ability to expand, and by giving our families the right to own something, the Belize Bank gives you the power to build a nation, our nation. Stronger together. The Belize Bank. Our country. Your bank.
Es un hecho que puedes obtener servicios ilimitados con Smart. ¿Cansado de que se corte la línea cuando más necesitas estar conectado? Es un hecho que cuando te suscribes al plan de Smart Plus, obtienes llamadas, textos y datos ilimitados. Y también es un hecho que te puedes suscribir con un grupo de 5 miembros al plan Smart Share y hasta 40 miembros al plan Smart Enterprise para llamadas, textos y datos ilimitados. Smart tiene los verdaderos planes ilimitados. Es un hecho. Sé Smart y vive de forma Smart.
Over 3 decades ago, a Belizean company with roots in Toledo realized that Belizeans were paying far too much for life-saving oxygen. This concerned them greatly, and they decided to do something about it. Although Fabregas Belize Limited was born decades ago, that founding spirit of service to the Belizean people has not only been retained, but cemented into the fabric of how the company does business. Right before the worldwide pandemic began, Fabregas Belize Limited invested significant resources in improved storage and logistics for our country's life-saving oxygen. At the company's own expense, COVID-19 units in 2 of the 4 regions of the country received state-of-the-art specialized oxygen distribution infrastructure for in-hospital and direct-to-bedside oxygen provision. Today, our nation's premier tertiary referral hospital, the KHMH Memorial Hospital in Belize City, is equipped with an ample, modern and suitable oxygen distribution system for its most pressing needs, even at the height of hospitalization due to the COVID-19. This investment in Belize's preparedness has ensured that throughout 2020 and now in 2021, Belize has backup reserves of approximately 300% more than the national need for life-saving medical oxygen. This important investment in infrastructure and technology is backed by a proud all-Belizean management and staff. Continuous training and adherence to international standards means that Fabregas stands ready to deliver the best products and service to its customers. So regardless of how Fabregas serves our nation, whether it's through providing the gases, technology and products that build Belize, or whether we serve by always ensuring that you, your loved ones and every Belizean home or in a hospital always has access to life-saving oxygen, Fabregas has got your back. And together, we look forward to rebuilding this nation in a post-pandemic world. Fabregas Belize Limited, we got your back.
It's been a year of lockdowns, losses, and separation from loved ones. As life slowly begins to return to normal, Channel 5 invites you and your family to join us on TV, Facebook or YouTube for a Newsfire special report from panic to pandemic, COVID-19 a year later. We look back at the people, the events, and the struggle Belizeans will never forget. Thursday, March 25th at 8 p.m. right here on Channel 5.
Today's COVID update is brought to you by Fulltech Systems, your technology center, where you'll come for the price but stay for the service.
And we're back. And if you are joining us now, we're just getting our first conversation going, and we are continuing the discussion about COVID-19 1 year into the pandemic, and we are looking back at it from all angles this week. This morning, we are going to be speaking with representatives from the Carl Huchner Memorial Hospital. That is, of course, our national referral hospital, and was, of course, bearing the brunt of a lot of the activity that that the COVID-19 pandemic involved. And so we have with us this morning Michelle Cox-Hoare, who is the CEO of the Carl Huchner Memorial Hospital. We also have Dr. Andre Sosa, who is the chairman of KHMH's board, and also Dr. Adrian Koi, who is the director of medical services at the KHMH. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
And thank you for joining us. And you know, just before the break, we were showing a clip that we had aired in January, where we were looking back at things that did occur at the hospital, and also just reflecting a little bit on the year that we've had. So perhaps we can talk. Perhaps we can start with Michelle, and you can tell us, you know, just give us some of what your reflections are, given that we are officially now 1 year since the first case in Belize.
Okay, sure. Thank you. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Looking back a year ago as to how we had to, how KHMH had to respond to, prepare and respond to the COVID pandemic, I can say that that was one of the hardest years in my entire career that I had to actually face. We faced it, we got through. It was very difficult. There were many moments of challenges preparing for the the unit, identifying staff, resources, you know, getting everyone prepared for, you know, basically the unexpected. You know, we were listening, tuning in to what was going on around the world and in our bordering countries, and using some of the experiences as lessons for us as we prepared. We worked hard, we bonded, we were able to pull together almost what some of us considered before as an impossible task, but we were able to get through that and, you know, together as a team. So it was indeed a very challenging period for us. The preparation was intense. The response was coordinated. We were able to pull resources from areas that, you know, we didn't even imagine possible, but we pulled through, and by the support, with the support of all our stakeholders at the Ministry of Health and the private sector, regional facilities, private facilities, we were able to get through.
Yeah. When you look back on the pictures we have on screen, the first few months where you had, I think, what was it, 1 or 2 beds?
Five critical care beds.
5 critical care beds, to what it expanded to over that course of time. Tell us about that process.
Okay, well, it started with immediately identifying a dedicated space, because given the mode of transmission and the virulence of the virus, we recognized very early that it was a virus, a condition that we would not be able to manage within our general patient care area. So we quickly identified a remote area, actually what was used for our physiotherapy unit and other offices. We converted that area to a critical care unit. Given that it was separated, it allows for dedicated access and that level of isolation that we knew we would need at the time. So given the space that we had to work with, we were only able to prepare at the time 5 critical care beds, and we had one area for pediatric management and a step down area for 3 beds. Mm-hmm. We quickly, having gone through our first draft of our plan and having that plan reviewed by the Pan American Health Organization, they quickly identified that we needed to start planning for surge. Mm-hmm. So that was early in May. We started looking at areas where we would be able to convert in the event we had a surge of COVID. And so quickly we expanded that 5-bed to a 10-bed space for critical care in our emergency. We had to identify space for relocating our actual emergency department. And of course, looking at the suspected cases, we also needed to identify spaces for surge of suspected cases, which clearly was the majority of cases that we were seeing at the time. Yeah. So we moved from a 5-bed unit, we increased it to 10. Eventually, we ended up at 23 critical care bed spaces, and we had 13 bed spaces at the end for the management of surge for suspected cases.
And there was a whole restructuring that had to be done for your inflows at the hospital as well, because that was the accident and emergency, and then it went beyond that.
Yes, it went beyond the accident and emergency, and of course, because the accident and emergency unit was the area that communicated directly with the COVID isolation area, we saw that that area would have been an ideal area for the spillover of confirmed case, and also that area had the requisite infrastructural support, for the management of ventilated cases. And so we identified that area as our surge area, and eventually we had to look at alternate spaces for the surges that we've been experiencing for the suspect cases.
You know, I think healthcare professionals across Belize, when we started to detect our first cases, were all very worried. We saw images from Europe, we saw images in the United States, in states that have some of the top healthcare facilities just being completely overwhelmed with cases. What was it like to be able to manage the hospital at that time, knowing that this was something that was very, at that time we thought it was going to happen. It didn't in fact happen at that time. But what was it like?
Well, it was very, it was a crowded situation. I mean, the numbers keep coming, the cases just keep popping up. We receive referrals from every single health region. Even from the private sector, we were receiving referrals, and so the numbers started going up quickly, you know, quite fast. The staff, there were moments when, you know, the staff really, they were challenged even to respond to the cases that were accessing our services for care. And so we had to be working alongside the staff, you know, providing the level of psychological support and actual support, you know. Management had to be on the ground with them, guiding them through some of the processes, you know, reinforcing some of the process, and at the same time, you know, assisting them through the very difficult emotional experiences that they were having. You know, some of them, you know, some of them really could not bear the workload. Some of them could not bear seeing patients dying, you know, and staff were breaking down, and we just had to be there with the staff, supporting them, and so, in some instances, even pulling them off their assignment, you know, just to make sure that we were able to keep the flow going and ensuring that we were receiving and managing patients as they arrived.
And perhaps, Dr. Koye, you can give us a little bit of insight from your perspective on how the preparations went in a year ago, and especially knowing that, you know, we were facing at that time something that was completely unknown.
First of all, thank you for the opportunity, and I just want to big up Carl Huchner for their heroism, because essentially this was a heroic effort from all levels, and the country should be very proud about the efforts made by our entire hospital and their families that supported the effort. Yes, we were faced with a new disease, and very scary because of, as you said, what we saw around the world happening. And interestingly, Belize was the last country this side of the world to actually have its first case diagnosed. Mm-hmm. And that's important to say, because in a way we had a lot of time to prepare. Mm-hmm. And, you know, in preparing, Carl Huchner did make a great effort training the staff, volunteers. In fact, there were several or many volunteers who said they're going to go and work in the unit. And Dr. Arriaga, the internist, Dr. Bradley, or respiratory therapist, Berta Pacheco, the only one that we have. Again, amazing efforts from so many heroes that we have. But they all spent the extra effort to try and prepare what we knew was coming, that onslaught. And we did experience an onslaught. And of course, as CEO Hora was saying, that we did have mental health preparations as well. And we tried to, as best as possible, keep up to date with what was coming up as information that is as current as it was, for us to see how best we can also utilize what was lessons learned from elsewhere into our plans and into our management style or approach. Mm-hmm. So it was a great learning curve.
What was the most challenging time in the past year for the hospital?
I think CEO expressed it well, and I think from the beginning till now, it has been challenging. The challenges have not diminished. Maybe COVID numbers are down, but before even COVID, our hospital always had challenges. Yeah. COVID was just a merciless weight and pressure for us. But of course, it demonstrated the resilience that we have and capacity that we have within the organization to rise to those challenges. Now, even though the numbers are down, what has swapped off from admissions for COVID is now interpersonal violence and road traffic accidents and those neglected non-communicable diseases who could not come to clinic on time, who had their surgeries delayed. We have another wave of health challenges that we're in the midst of, basically trying to emerge. And to emerge properly, of course, we have to say that vaccination is key.
Yes.
And we really would like to the message to go there that if you have that chance to get vaccinated, please do. Because really we do not know if a second or third wave, as they keep referring to, will come our way. But we do know, without a doubt, that this virus mutates, as in all viruses, and that we will face a challenge similar to this in the future. So we have to go from lessons learned and go forward to be in a state of readiness. Because this is not a one-off event.
And since we're on that point, what's the status of the vaccination of staff there at KHMH?
Well, to date, we have over 80% of our staff already vaccinated.
Okay.
And we are still working on the others. You know, there was a rush of vaccination in the first couple of weeks. And so now we are just working on those who had, you know, second thoughts and fair issues that we are actually working with or working through with them.
And Dr. Sosa, maybe we can get some, you can describe or give us a little bit of context of what for, you know, not only are you a doctor and a healthcare professional, but you also, as chairman of the board, would have had to been involved in making, you know, a lot of the decision-making process for the hospital throughout these different stages of the pandemic. So perhaps you can tell us what that was like, you know, navigating from the very beginning and going the process throughout. Do we have Dr. Sosa?
Sorry, yeah, I'm with you.
Oh, okay.
Yes, thank you, Gavin. First of all, I want to thank you all for the invitation. I think that now is the time to thank the 700 members of the KHMH staff for their resilience and for their dedication. KHMH brings together the biggest concentration of healthcare professionals in this country, and it has been a difficult year, or a difficult 12 months. I want to give special thanks and praise to CEO, Mr. Coxford. I think that we were fortunate that at the beginning, at the outset of this pandemic, we had a person with background in infection control who saw clearly the perils and the dangers that were facing us. It is nothing short of miraculous that in such a short period of time, a completely new service was created at KHMH, the COVID ward, and that required the deployment or the diversion of a huge part of the resources of the hospital. Close to or just above $2 million were spent on the bill is mounting still in the creation and the staffing and the sourcing of resources for this all-important COVID unit. The board was constituted, the new board was constituted in December, but I was there almost from the beginning, seeing the evolution of this pandemic. Whilst the reflection on what has happened is very important, for us at the board, what comes next is equally important because the COVID-19 pandemic laid bare some very glaring deficiencies in the system, chronic underinvestment that made the task of dealing with the challenges even more difficult. So we were playing catch up while building something and trying to save the nation from this scourge.
Yeah. Let me, you said something really critical. Facing a health crisis of this magnitude has really just put a magnifying glass on the state of our healthcare system, or public healthcare system in this country. And many argued very early on that it was unfair to expect them to be as well prepared given the fact that they had been under-resourced for so long. When you look at where we are today, and while there still is all this interest on ensuring that entities like KHMH and other clinics and whatnot are getting what they need for COVID, is it also a time for us to really focus on ensuring that the service and resources available at our National Referral Hospital be taken into consideration as a whole?
Certainly. We have to build back better. Mm-hmm. What Carl Huchner was facing whilst trying to deliver the salvation against COVID was a situation where there was poor physical infrastructure upkeep because of the lack of investment. The oxygen infrastructure in the hospital, which was so critical, it lies at the heart of providing care for COVID, was terribly inadequate. We also had the situation of very poor electrical infrastructure, again, with so many equipment that depend on the provision of electricity. That also was something that hampered our ability to deliver the service at the level, at the high level that our staff was accustomed to or who would have wanted to. Mm-hmm. Maintenance of infrastructure as well made it a challenge to provide the service. I'll give you just one example. Yeah. We had a new unit, the NICU, PICU, which is barely 5 years old. There are isolation rooms in that unit that have never been able to operate. That is where the COVID-19 infants or newborns should have been placed. But because that service had never been properly outfitted, we had to bunch in the newborns with the general adult staff in the COVID-19 and POI section. That I think is something that is unacceptable. Certainly, we also are dealing with outdated IT infrastructure in this day and age when we depend on information technology to support our machinery. That was something that also created grave difficulties for us. One of the things that has chronically faced Carl Huchner and all hospitals in this country has been the shortage of medical devices and appliances, ventilators, infusion pumps, and so on and so forth. Those were critically short. It's only been the last several months that, thanks to the hard work of the Ministry of Health and Wellness, that we were able to procure a large number of ventilators and infusion pumps and so on and so forth, and for that we are very grateful. Yeah. Now, Carl Huchner is an entity that is an authority, and it receives a subvention from the government of Belize, but we have to make do with the resources we have to be able to deliver services. Yeah. And those services have been dramatically affected, and hence our ability to generate income to keep up with with our services has been gravely affected. Another problem that we have is that having to staff the fight against COVID has been terribly expensive. We face a chronic problem of shortage of nurses and doctors in this country. And so the people that we have available have had to work very long overtime hours. And it's been a challenge to be able to fulfill the commitment to pay the staff for the overtime. And that is something that we keep negotiating with the Ministry of Health and the Government of Belize to help us to fulfill that commitment to our very hardworking and dedicated staff.
Yeah. Who had to very often quarantine themselves from their family because they were working in the quarantine, because they were working in the COVID unit.
Yes, indeed, ma'am. Marlene, there were periods of months when our nurses and doctors and attendants and PCAs and so on and so forth were unable to see their families. Many of our staff fell ill and had to be isolated, far from the support, from the love and care of their families. I can't praise them enough for their hard work and dedication. I've always said that the Belize Defense Force represents the best of Belize, but I think that I can also say, without a shadow of a doubt, that the Carl Hushner Memorial staff, and indeed the health workers across this country, also represent the best in Belize. We have seen a new face of what this country can do when we work together, and when we give our people the opportunity to show themselves in all their dedication and knowledge.
And you know, we talk a lot about numbers. So as of yesterday, we were looking at over 12,000 confirmed cases. And yesterday we reported an additional death, so we lost 317 lives so far in the pandemic. But one of the things that I find interesting is that the KHMH treated a number of people, and your recovery rate is very impressive. Can we talk about the number of people who were admitted for care and were successfully treated and released? Nurse Hall?
We had close to 200 patients that were actually admitted in the COVID isolation room, and we had close to 50 or a little over 50% of that number that were actually released and recovered. And so that is impressive, considering the acuity of their illness at the point when they interfaced KHMH coming from different areas of the country, no?
Yeah. What you mean by that is they come to you in a very, very serious condition. They would have been treated somewhere else, then brought to you in critical state.
Yes, yeah. And we were actually looking at the numbers, and we saw that more than 50% of our cases that died actually died within 48 to 72 hours of their admission. And so that is telling, in the sense that it tells you the state with which we received those patients, and we had to respond and, you know, do the miraculous of getting them through. Some we were able to bring through, and some, unfortunately, we were not able to pull through. Yeah. And so that contributed to the mortality rate, you know, that we are seeing we saw at KHMH.
So let's shift gears. Looking forward into year 2 of the pandemic, again, another unknown reality that we're entering. Will there be another wave? Will variants pop up that will still spread like wildfire? Will things eventually go back to normal? No one really knows for sure. How do you prepare for year 2 of the pandemic?
Well, firstly, our unit is still standing. We keep our unit equipped. We make sure that we are servicing all our equipment. We are giving staff time to rest, you know, take vacation, be away, spend time with their families. We are, you know, we continue with our training and capacity building in-house, you know, ensuring that additional resources that were not acquired during the last year, that we are getting those, and that we have everything, you know, ready on standby in the event we need to respond. We have not really dismantled any of our surge area. We understand the path that we would need to follow in the event there needs to be a response. So everybody is on high alert. We continue with our surveillance system at the hospital. We keep monitoring every case that comes through the hospital. And that is part of, you know, maintaining our high surveillance activities, ensuring that we don't miss anything should any new cases pop up.
All right. And for you, Dr. Koyi, in being able to ensure that we are prepared for what year 2 may bring?
Well, again, as CEO rightly said, we continue to do training, lessons learned. We want to review and update our protocols that were drafted last year. And of course, we review what worked from what did not work. Because, I mean, as I've said before, it was a learning curve for everyone. And, you know, the opportunity that we have to, you know, create for those who want to, I guess, advance their training in critical care, and especially is there. I think it's a field that is open. We are under provided for that in that sense. And I think it shows us in a spotlight where our human resource development has to go, and of course to prepare. Yeah. But again, the challenge remains right now is that we are not out of the woods. Yeah. We have to have the message to be consistent from every level, that we continue to do the measures of protection and to get vaccinated. Absolutely. And I think I cannot emphasize it enough, because the quicker we are on board, I believe the better the country can be reactivated to deal with all the other social ills that we have to address as an urgency, in a matter of urgency.
And from your point of view, Dr. Sosa, just looking forward, you noted the collaboration that still remains for KHMH and Ministry of Health. Understanding the economic situation of the country, not just from the government standpoint, but also from the patients that you'll be serving. How do you plan for year 2? You may be muted again. Dr. Sosa, you still there?
Sorry. Yeah, as I was saying, I think the first thing is the vaccination rollout at KHMH and in the country as a whole. The institution, again, is leading by example. We have 80% coverage already. So we have to ensure that everyone in this country is vaccinated, everyone that is eligible. And when vaccinations become available for under 16s, they too will need to be covered. But bear in mind that having a vaccination coverage isn't necessarily a guarantee that we won't have another wave. We look at the examples in Chile, in Germany, which have significantly improved and expanded their vaccination. They too are facing new waves. So even though we have reached this point with very low numbers, thanks to the hard work of our public health officials, and by the way, I want to praise especially Dr. Melissa Diaz-Musa, who listened to us professionals and helped to implement some of the necessary measures that have made a difference. Of course, she is part of a team, but we are very thankful for the Ministry of Health and also for the for our public health officials. Mm-hmm. But getting back to KHMH, we will now be facing that huge backlog of cases and that have not been able to be treated in the midst or in the height of the COVID pandemic. It will be very important for us to reach out to those patients and to bring their treatments up to date. That will be a huge challenge. It will require a lot of resources, but we need to reach out to them and to remedy their situation. In that regard, the services at Karl Kirchner have been largely brought back online, thanks to the hard work and dedication of our staff at the patient clinic and so on. I think, though, that in year 2 and beyond, we have to face this situation as a country. I'm urging all young people who have the vocation and the interest to serve their country to sign up to train as nurses, to sign up to train as doctors, to sign up to train as radiology technicians, as PCAs, and so on and so forth. We have to cast aside this colonial mentality that someone is going to come from outside to save us. That's not the case. And when we were locked away, isolated during the height of the COVID emergencies, we were pretty much on our own. Sure, we got some help, but we have to help ourselves. And that means that more of us have to train as healthcare professionals. Beyond that, though, Karl Kirchner has already outgrown its needs, the needs of the Belizean public. We are a hospital that has less beds than the old Belize State Hospital. Wow. That is part of the reason why we had to scramble for space to provide the COVID services. The investment will have to be made to expand Karl Kirchner and its services. There's no getting away from it. Our population keeps increasing, and this is something that has to be viewed as a matter of urgency. More investment has to be made in Karl Kirchner if we are to be able to provide the kind of care that our citizens need. So, it will require everyone on board. What you will see in the coming weeks and months will be a transformation of Karl Kirchner, both in the way it looks, in the services we provide, but also in the level of training that we will be giving our staff. I want to thank right now Dr. Adrian Koye and Dr. Emerson Mungia, who took over the leadership of the medical staff in Karl Kirchner. We were at a point where COVID fatigue was having a demoralizing and damaging effect on the provision of medical services. And these two not so young men helped to transform the face of medicine in this institution.
All right. Well, thank you to you who have joined us this morning to shed some light on where KHMH is 1 year later and looking forward into another year of the pandemic. And thank you to all of the staff there and the healthcare workers across the country for what you have done for all of us in the first year. We appreciate you and continue to stay safe.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
And with that, we are going to go ahead and take a break. When we come back, some new data on looking at the situation of children in our country. That's coming up after the break, so please stay tuned.
This COVID update was brought to you by Fulltech Systems, your technology center, where you'll come for the price, but stay for the service. Working off-site doesn't mean you have to be off your game. Studies have shown that simply adding a keyboard and mouse to your laptop increases productivity by 26%. Add a monitor, and you'll be 35% more productive. At Fulltech Systems, we have what you need to enhance your remote work or e-learning experience. With devices such as headsets, video conferencing monitors, webcams, keyboards, mice, docking stations, all with the brands you trust. Keep connected with collaboration tools like Microsoft 365 Suite and Kaspersky and perform efficiently no matter where you are. Fulltech Systems, your technology center, where you'll come for the price, but stay for the service.
Hello. Okay, sure, I'll be there. Hello?
Hi, Mommy. When are you coming home? I really miss you.
Hearing the voice of our loved ones can always lift our spirits and make us feel whole again. With Smart's twice as nice promotion, prepaid customers who make 5 minutes worth of national calls on Sundays can enjoy 50% off. Top double on all national calls for the rest of the day. Call your loved ones and enjoy half off all day long. Smart, bringing people together.
Research on the impact of COVID-19 infection on pregnant women is limited. Right now, pregnant women are at higher risk of severe illness than the general population. Pregnancy can affect the way a woman's body handles respiratory infections. If you are pregnant, protect yourself against COVID-19. Wash hands frequently using soap and water for at least 40 seconds. Use alcohol-based hand sanitizer if soap and water are not available. Cover cough or sneeze with tissue and throw used tissue in a bin. Clean and disinfect frequently touched surfaces such as doorknobs, counters, phones, and tablets. Practice physical distancing. Work from home if possible. Avoid contact with anyone who has fever, cough, and cold or flu-like symptoms. Don't touch your eyes, nose, or mouth without first washing your hands with soap and water. If you have fever, cough, and feel extra tired, call 0800-MOH-CARE. Help keep Belize safe.
And we're back. And if you're joining us now, we are just getting our second conversation started. And we're shifting gears now, and we are going to be talking about the results of a recent survey that was conducted, and that is the Multiple Indicator Cluster Survey. And we are going to get all the details about that. And joining us for that conversation, we have Paulette Wade, who is the Monitoring and Evaluation Specialist with UNICEF Belize, and we also have Margaret Nicholas, who is the Executive Director of the National Committee for Families and Children. Good morning, ladies.
Good morning, and thanks for having us. I know for both Ms. Nick and myself, it's a very exciting moment. As you know, I am a lover of data, and it really brings me joy to support the government in trying to provide the evidence that is needed to support the various interventions that we are implementing to support the development and survival of children in Belize.
Absolutely. And with that, perhaps we can start by just explaining a little bit about what the survey is and how the data is collected and what it's used for.
Okay, I am excited because this pilot is a first of its kind for the entire mix program in UNICEF. This mix is different from the regular mix that we normally do every 5 years. Every 5 years, since 2006, MITs have supported the government of Belize in collecting data on children, and this was normally done through a face-to-face engagement where the enumerators went to selected households and asked the questions, entered the information in paper. That's how we started, and then by 2015 we were using tablets to collect that data. However, this new innovation is using phones to be able to conduct this interview. And what we wanted to test was whether or not we could still have statistical rigor if we weren't doing it face-to-face, and we were just calling households to get their response. Why this is different from the regular mix is because the regular mix, we do a representative sample of the entire country. So while we have done 3 years, 3 different periods of mix, it might not be the same household that were sampled. It's a sample representation, yes, but it might not be the same selected household. While in Mix Plus, what we did is we got selected households, and those households were, I would want to say, questioned monthly.
Yeah.
For 11 months. So you have the same household. So you're having quite a sort of a picture of what's happening, the changing dynamics, the changing indicators within those households. No, and so what we're here today is to celebrate the close of this. We had to postpone a bit because of the COVID response and trying to get that on the way. That was the priority for the government, but now we can now focus on some of the things that we had pending, and this is one of them.
Yeah. Now, I want to bring Ms. Nicholas into the conversation to talk a bit about why this data is important. There are certain things we know, and what we suspect and to a certain extent know takes place within our country. But why is it critical that we have the numbers to prove how many children are facing violence at home? How many children are working instead of going to school? Tell me a bit about how this data feeds into actual programs. Margaret?
Thank you so much, Marlene. And like Paula said, we're extremely excited because really the National Committee for Families and Children is privileged to have had an opportunity to work closely with UNICEF. Because as you might recall, we have commissioned our National Strategy to End Violence Against Children. And without data, sometimes it is impossible for us to properly plan. However, with the data, with the mix, and we have been following the mix since the first mix way back in 2011, because one of the outputs on our National Strategy to End Violence was really and truly one of them among many, was the whole issue of ending child marriage and early unions, because that is an extremely big problem in our Belizean society. And I think that as we look back at the mixed survey, the opportunities that it gave to us was that we noted that a great amount of our young people were involved in this practice. And it was also not really known how wide and broad the problem was and how it still is. But due to the mixed survey, we were able to pick up on the data. So it really and truly informed our decision as we looked at the data in 2011, we looked at the data in 2015. And so we were able to quickly accelerate actions to start to look at strategies to end that particular problem. And so we were able to develop a roadmap. We partnered with UNICEF and UNFPA. And so we were able to use the data, which showed that in 2011 we were at 15.6, and then by 2015 we were at 20.2. 0.8%, which was like a 5.6 increase.
For a thing that we thought we had gotten rid of, right? That people didn't realize children were still being forced to be married.
Exactly, and the thing is, if we look at the whole issue of early marriage and early unions, then we can look at all the other accompanying problems like domestic violence, like teenage pregnancies, and all the other ills that is really and truly hampering the lives of our children, because these are really and truly children. And it was appalling in that we knew that in 2005 that the law has been changed, that children were only able to be married with the permission of their parents. However, the data and what we have found out is not saying that to us. And what the data has also done for us is to give us an opportunity to look at the other areas of health and education, and to really help us then to move the roadmap, the implementation of the roadmap, and to really and truly look at these drivers. Who are these people who are conducting these marriages? Who are these people who are creating this kind of environment for our children? And so for us, the data is extremely helpful. We also have the children's agenda, as you know. And under the children's agenda, we have national outcomes for our children. Our children are supposed to be protected and safe. And we also have the transformational goals. And here again, we are 3 years in 2020 of the children's agenda. And using the mixed data and other administrative data that we were able to come across, we have been able now to draft the triennial report. Because one of the arrangements under the children's agenda is that every 3 years, we need to give account to the nation as to what is the position of our children. Yeah. And so we were able to draft that as well. And so that is in draft. It is currently in a work in progress and should be shared with the public shortly. Yeah. So really and truly, this is how data really and truly informs policies and decisions, and how it helps us to tweak and look at our indicators, and then to tweak them to come to terms with where we are presently.
And as I said,
Marlene, can I just jump in right there too? I don't want to take over the show, but
no, go ahead.
To jump in and to just on the heels of what Ms. Nick says. Because we were testing Mix Plus, and as I said, this is the use of telephone. So there was no face-to-face engagement in terms of the Mix Plus. It came out of the heels of Mix, yes, because the households had to give consent to participate in the phone survey. But what was good for us, we started in doing the phone surveys in August of 2019. So on the onset of the first case of COVID in Belize, we were quickly able to add a module right on the spot. The week after the first case was mentioned, COVID module was added, and we were able to gather information from those households in terms of the things that Ministry of Health needed in terms of their communication response. How many people were using masks, whether or not household had soaps for washing hands, whether or not they were practicing proper hand washing skills. What was the area in which, what was the medium in which they were getting their communications from? Who were they listening to? So that the Ministry of Health knew exactly when and where to place those messages. One of the key things that came out forth with was that the population that was most at risk at that time was saying that, you know, they did not feel that they were at risk. And that was a concern, because if you don't feel you're at risk, you won't take the necessary precautions. And so the communication was amped up to say, okay, please remember that if you're in this population, if you're 60 and over, you're at higher risk.
Let's use one particular data set that's come out so far from your Mix Plus. So the Mix Plus, as you said, you do this Mix survey, multiple indicator cluster survey every 5 years. The Plus was introduced when you shift to phone and to do a monthly check-in to monitor what's happening from March to June, right? To know what was happening in Belize in particular areas. I want to talk
August 2019 to June.
Okay.
22.
I want to focus a bit on that social protection one, to look at the household income, because I think that really helps us to put how the Mix Plus really gives us a picture. Explain to us what we are seeing here, Paulette.
Okay, what it's saying there is that if you notice that 74% of the households who are participating in the survey actually experience some loss of income. 14% actually had income that were reduced, and 60% of those families lost their income altogether. Now, these households that participated in the survey were actually from Toledo, the entire district, rural and urban, and in Belize, it was in Belize City South Side. So this gave a quick indicator as to how much COVID impact the income within households. And if you notice that if these households are really being impacted in terms of income, then other deprivations, children will suffer other deprivations, you know, because you cannot afford the healthy food. So children consumption of nutritious food will reduce. You know, that has issues in terms of access to services, water, electricity, you know, so these things go a long way in terms of trying to provide that safety net.
Internet for school.
Internet for school, yes, most importantly. And not with the mix, but when we were on the ground in December and January responding to victims of Iota and Eta, the flooding, many parents indicated that that was an issue. I mean, the whole access to internet and having to purchase data for their children constantly really impacted on them.
Can we go to the child protection on violent discipline too? Because we were talking with social workers on International Social Work Day, and they pointed out that they have seen over the course of the first year of the pandemic, I think they quoted 51% or around that increase in reports of physical abuse for children. And so when we look at your violent discipline data, again, this is only one sample, we are seeing an increase.
Yes. Well, you know, the conditions in which children are really living is a bit stressed. And if you would also couple this with the information that we have received from the Ministry of Health, that children are experiencing issues of mental health as it relates to self-harm, you know. So it's just to say that the situation in which children are living are very stressed.
Yeah.
And if the environment are very stressed and parents are at home, because many parents, if we go from the income data, who have lost their source of income, they're at home as well.
Yeah.
And so you are existing in this tense space, parents and children. And so parents, you know, sometimes do not know of alternative measures for disciplining their children. And without that skill set, then the first thing for us is to hit, you know. And if you notice there, even though 31% of children experience violence, only 15% of those parents felt that it was necessary. So half of the parents also, who were also hitting, did not feel that it was necessary. So, you know, we also have to support parents in giving them the tools to be able to do alternative discipline. And I will call on Ms. Nick for this, because I know that there is a parenting manual that the NCFC has developed to support parents in this kind of situation, to provide alternative disciplinary measures or techniques that parents can really use, you know, when they feel stressed or when the children are not quote unquote behaving. So I will hand over to Ms. Nick here.
Yeah, that is so true, Paulette. The thing is that COVID has really and truly impeded some of the strategies. However, we are today, as a matter of fact, meeting to look at how we can really and truly start to reach parents online and within other avenues, because the data really and truly speaks to a major problem, because we are very cognizant of the fact that the problem out there exists. We look at the whole problem, in fact, of physical discipline. And we know while physical discipline has been, corporal punishment have been abolished from the schools and so on, we were seriously looking at, as the Child Protection Technical Working Group, we were also seriously looking at, while we are supporting parents through the guide and through the parent members, so on, we also believe that the discussion has to begin, and I know it's going to be a huge debate on how do we remove corporal punishment from homes. Because of course, you know, we will be putting our place here and there as to who is in charge. However, as an organization with a mandate for the Convention on the Rights of the Child, we have to consider and start this discussion. And again, this is where the data really and truly, you know, informs us and help us to and guide us to how we proceed with these consultations and how we move. The parenting committee, how much more they need to do, how the Child Protection Technical Working Group has to now decide how are we going to forge ahead to help to remove corporal punishments from home, because it's a big task. And I know it's going to take some time, but the work has to begin, the discussion has to begin. And like you rightfully said, Paulette, we have to seriously then look at alternatives and to help parents to know, you know, how to deal with problems rather than to use the whip.
And you know, it's interesting that we're also having this discussion, because another one of the areas that we're looking at in terms of child protection was child labor. And those statistics or figures were also surprising to me. But perhaps you can share your thoughts on that and you know, what that means or the impact that that has on our children and society.
Well, as you know, as we mentioned, all the data is connected. You have a loss of income in household, right? And so you have children at home who have to support, maybe, in terms of additional household activities because they're at home. And so, you know, additional chores might be added. They might also be asked to maybe do additional work. Remember now that if you're not 14, then you should not be, you can do household chores, but you cannot be working. But in some situations and in some homes, children have been also required to support in terms of income generation because the overall household had lost income. And that is the reason for the spike in terms of children who are in child labor.
I think I just want to add to Paulette that child labor has been a problem for some time. And I think COVID has probably added on to it. However, the National Committee, Policy and Legal Subcommittee, along with the Labor Committee, we have really and truly taken a close look at the labor laws and trying to bring them into tandem with the Convention on the Rights of the Child, because really and truly when we look at the age of when a child is allowed to work at 14, as you rightfully said, that is also the age of mandatory education. And so we must ensure that, notwithstanding what that is at this time, because we have actually made recommendations to remove from that age of that tender age of 40. We have also looked at defining what in the law would be considered as light work, as well as what would be considered as hazardous work. Because we have a lot of our children in particular areas who are doing some really hazardous occupation.
Yeah.
And to the deprivation of their education and their own rights as a child. So it is a huge problem, and it is one that we're hoping that the laws are presently before the Labor Advisory Board, and we're hoping that those will be reviewed and the recommendations will be shortly sent over once there has been a collective agreement between education, health, and everybody who is involved. Because one of the recommendations for that under education is also to raise the age of mandatory education, because there is that gap.
Yeah.
And under the Convention of the Rights of the Child, every child under the age of 18 is considered to be a child. And so we're hoping that that process will move very quickly this year, and so that we can then look at the labor laws, we can look at the policies, and we can make sure that then we're in tandem with what ILO convention is saying as far as the standards are concerned.
So I know that the entire, all the results will be revealed a bit later. You have the launch of the actual study taking place. But I can't let you leave without hearing from you individually, because you're people who are working on the ground, and I'm sure there are data sets that you are looking forward to find out about. Let's start with you, Ms. Nick. What have you found out so far from the Mix Plus data that has been very revealing for you?
Well, the whole issue of violent discipline that has really touched us now, because the violent discipline, there's so many. There's violent discipline. There's the whole issue of children not in school. When we look at, because we keep saying this, as you know, Marlene, that sometimes we feel that our children are really not in the best place, and through these mechanisms and these tools, we're hoping then that we will be able to move. But really and truly, for me, it was really and truly the violent discipline that is being instilled in our children, that is being used up, not instilled, but used upon our children in this very difficult pandemic time.
Where even half the parents say that they knew it wasn't necessary.
Exactly, and our children, and so it means that they were used as pawns, they were used as a means of getting rid of one's frustration, and so it's really and truly touching deep within our minds and our souls as to how we progress and how we make sure that the parenting task force and the child protection committees and all who are involved move towards trying to alleviate some of those problems.
Absolutely. And for you, Paulette?
Well, I would like to agree with Ms. Nick in that, in terms of the discipline for children, because it's not like children can remove themselves from those spaces. They're dependent upon the same families that are really administering this kind of discipline. But I want to say, while the data resonated with us, NCFC and UNICEF instantly went into what we call a parenting messaging intervention, which is running concurrently. So when we saw the data, because we saw the data before we were actually doing the launch, we said, okay, parents need a way. So quickly we went into, along with POWER, CDF, and YES, we sent out messages to parents, 1,241 parents. And those messages spoke to parents, if you're having problems, if you feel stressed, take a time out, count to 10, go outside, take a deep breath, and different things that parents could do. And we are using this same infrastructure to really monitor parents across to see whether or not those messages are having the impact and parents are actually resorting to alternative ways of disciplining their children. So we will ask you again to invite us, so we could talk about the results of that study and whether or not those messages actually change those numbers.
Well, we do hope
we have
so.
intervention going on right now.
We do hope so. And it's a great time for us to be able to remind the public as well that as community members and neighbors, we have a responsibility to report if we know that children are being abused in their homes or if they're unsafe in any way.
Yes.
All right. Well, tell us a bit about the launch that's taking place as we close so people can find out about this and so much more.
Okay, well, the launch, as I said, we're excited, first of all, and the launch starts today at 9 and it goes until about 11. The launch will look at what we did in this pilot. Sorry about that. What we did in this pilot, what are the implications globally, because as I said, we did this pilot, but this pilot was actually replicated in other countries because COVID came. So we were put on the, the spotlight to say, wow, Belize was leading in innovations for data. So we will have that talk. We will also showcase the two dashboard that we have online that makes the data accessible, but as well user-friendly. 2 clicks of a button, you can get your graphs. You can get it disaggregated by region, by girl, by male, female, total, and so on. So we will also be showcasing that so that people know where to get this data afterwards. We will also hear from the Statistical Institute of Belize and how the mix has been able to develop and to build the capacity of SIB to collect data. We will also hear several testimonials from various agencies who have used MIX to really guide their policies, guide their strategies, or monitor their different plans. And at the end, we are just going to have a panel discussion talking about the way forward and the utility of this data and how we can maybe morph this Mix Plus into additional support. I just want to say that this Mix Plus has also been used to support the government in terms of identifying and vetting households who will then benefit from the social protection program, the one that you're going to go to smart and use your cell phones and so on. So we are at the cutting edge of technology, and we are supporting the government in all the initiatives to ensure that the situation for children change.
All right. Well, we appreciate you giving us just a preview of what's going to be revealed today. We know that this is very useful information for us to know what's happening with our children across the country, and hopefully we'll be able to trigger some actions to continue to keep them safe and to protect those who are unprotected at this time. We appreciate you joining us this morning. Stay safe, ladies.
Bye. You too. Bye.
And with that, we are going to be taking another break, and when we come back, we are going to be speaking with representatives from the DFC, and they're going to be talking all about some new stuff that they have to offer. So please stay tuned, and we'll be right back after the break.
Pelican, the beer of Belize.
As one of the largest cable and internet providers in Belize, CBC strives to provide our customers with the highest standards of quality, value, and service in all aspects of cable TV and internet. Monitoring our systems closely, our technicians combine creative planning and state-of-the-art technology with years of experience and training to develop and provide the most reliable and advanced cable and internet service to exceed your expectations. For CBC and our team of talented engineers, technicians, and customer service representatives, delivering less than the very best is never an option.
If we are only as strong as our families, businesses, institutions, and the communities that surround us, then by giving businesses the power to grow, entrepreneurs the ability to expand, and by giving our families the right to own something, the Belize Bank gives you the power to build a nation, our nation. We are stronger together. The Belize Bank, our country, your bank.
Wow. Oh my God, she drunk. No hurry, I got this. My goodness. Oh my gosh, it's the artist.
Being the hardest. The artist. But you had way more than 2 drinks tonight, love, which is a legal limit to drive. What about you? Can you drive?
Well, I was drinking soft drink all night, so I can drive her home. Aw, thanks, Bree. Of course, Tricia, you know I got you. You're my girl.
That's what I like to see. Friends don't let friends drive drunk, because you can't replay in a real life. Stig says so. Can't replay in a real life.
And we're back. And if you're joining us now, we are just getting our final conversation for this morning started. And we have with us right now representatives from the Development Finance Corporation to speak about a bunch of new services and products that they are offering. And joining us for this conversation, we have Armin Cancino, who is the branch manager of the DFC in Belize City, and also Erwin Torres, who is a credit officer. Good morning, gentlemen.
Hi, good morning.
Right, and thank you for joining us for this morning's discussion. Of course, earlier on in our program and this whole week, we have been discussing that we are 1 year officially into the, well, since the first case of COVID-19 was declared in Belize, and so we have been experiencing the full effects of the pandemic for a year now, and that of course has brought its own challenges to a lot of persons and businesses in the country. And so perhaps you can talk to us a little bit about what it's been like for the DFC and how you've been managing to assist your customers throughout the pandemic.
Sure, thanks. So as we all know or may not know, DFC is a development finance institution, meaning we're a development bank. And what that means is we're not a regular commercial bank where you have an account and you can deposit your savings, etc. So we try to assist the Belizean public in developing in terms of offering financing for small businesses, large businesses in agriculture and productive sector. We do home financing, and we have quite a robust student loan portfolio, which is, I think DFC is very known for.
Yeah.
More recently, we have engaged in renewable energy and energy efficiency financing, which I believe we're the only financial institution in Belize that focuses on that with a affordable rates.
Yeah.
So during especially in these times of COVID and so forth, DFC has had to look at how we can best assist our clients especially during like you said, 1 year lockdown that we're the anniversary that we're going through now. DFC supported businesses with 3 key points when the lockdown started. We instituted moratorium on loans. We had suspension of penalty fees and the restructuring fees for all accounts.
Yeah.
And we implemented a COVID-19 working capital loans. The COVID-19 working capital loans was mainly directed to the tourism sector because they were the ones that were affected the hardest.
Yeah.
But it also included other businesses as well. So we ended up, I believe, close to a little over $4 million in working capital loan product from the capital loan that we offered to that sector.
And what was that was a loan that was offered to allow for some of these businesses to be able to survive by maintaining employees or keeping the company going, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
So there was some criteria, and we know that not all businesses were able to keep 100% of their employees, but to keep their businesses going, keep the maintenance of their properties going, keep some people maybe at half salaries or whatever the business could afford. So yes, that was the main purpose.
Let's go back for a moment to the suspension of the late penalties and the late penalty fee. That was only for a period of time. So, what has happened since you have resumed your collections once again with these fees instituted? Are people returning to be able to pay their loans?
Right. So that's a good question. We don't have 100% bounce back, if you may, with many businesses. So what the DFC has extended to our clients is come in and let us hear from you. Let's see if you need an additional moratorium. Let's restructure your loan maybe for a lower payment. So that's what we've been doing. We've been proactive from the get-go when the shutdown started. Instead of just sitting at home and waiting, we had staff countrywide calling the clients and offering the moratoriums or offering assistance. We did have some clients that were fortunate enough to be able to pay during the pandemic. And unfortunately, we've had some that were not able to. Yeah. So, and we're still in that mode where we've been talking to clients right now who still aren't at 100%, maybe not even at 50%. Yeah. But let's talk, let's discuss, let's see how we can continue restructuring and maybe an additional moratorium.
I'm glad you mentioned that. And it's a great opportunity, to get you into the conversation, because I wanted to ask, sometimes people are at home, they're depressed, they don't have work, they're trying to find work, they maybe don't even know how to approach the institution to work out something else. What's your advice to them as a credit officer?
But definitely, as Mr. Cancino is mentioning, we take into consideration all factors, and very important here is the communication. While we are mobilizing our resources to reach out to our customers, in many cases there are some that unfortunately we're unable to reach, and it is important for them as well to feel free to reach out to us in the event where we can't get to them. Reach out to us. We are always available. We're willing to work with you. We have an excellent credit administration department that focuses on these items here. So it's simply to get on the phone, give us a call, send us an email, let us talk your situation and see how best we're able to assist you. At the end of the day, that is what we're here for.
Yeah.
Correct.
And can you also talk a little bit about some of the services, that you'll now be offering, or is anything that's new as we head into, well, as we're well into 2021?
Yes, definitely the DFC continues to be creative and innovative in its mandate of development within Belize. Presently, we are preparing to launch 2 new loans and add them to our product line. And these include what we refer to as our Empower Business Loans and our We Serve Home Loans. Under our Empower Business Loans, we have designed a credit facility especially for women and young adults in the small to medium-sized enterprise arena. This facility targets 2 of our most vulnerable groups in Belize and will cater to females and young adults between the ages of 18 to 29. One of the benefits of this facility here is that funding can be accessed for either startups or existing businesses. It can be for capital investment, working capital, revolving lines of credit, even specialized training, marketing, website development, and in certain cases, even legal fees. Interest rates for this facility here is going to be at a starting rate of 7.5% on the reducing balance, repayment terms of up to 72 months. And it's very competitive when you think about a business loan at that interest rate there. If I'm not mistaken, out there in the financial industry, for business loans, it might start at even maybe 9.99%. So it's a very competitive rate, right? In the case of the We Serve Home Loans, we have designed this credit facility especially for public officers and GOB's uniformed personnel. And the program is designed for these officers to have easier access to affordable, long-lasting, climate-resilient homes at 100% financing. Very important there is being the 100% financing, because in many cases, we have clients that approach us and not have what we refer to or as the down payment necessary, right? So with this facility here, we are prepared to do 100% financing, and the facility can be used for land purchases with intent to construct later, purchase of an existing house and lot, 100% refinancing of an existing residential loan with other financial institutions, maybe expansion, home improvement, fencing, even integrating renewable energy or energy efficient products to the home you're seeking to construct. Now, for this facility here, we will have starting rates of 7.5% with repayment terms of up to 20 years, plus a 6-month grace period where necessary. In addition to these 2 new products that the DFC has created, we are also recommending our COVID-19 tourism recovery working capital loans, which Mr. Cancino just touched on. Basically, this program was designed to assist the recovery of Belize's tourism sector through the provision of working capital credits to facilitate the continued operations and preparation for reopening of businesses that were adversely impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic.
Yeah, and who qualifies for this second round of the working capital loans?
Well, basically, this facility here is a working capital facility that can be used to cover salaries, wages, utilities, supplies, fuel, property maintenance. And basically, there is a criteria that is taken a look at on an individual basis. You had to be in operation prior to COVID-19, you had to keep records and so on. But a lot of it is on a case-by-case basis whereby we analyze the information provided by the client. There is also a criteria whereby you have to maintain a percentage of your staff as well. So all of those factors are taken into consideration, and analysis is done to see for us to basically be able to assist.
Yeah, so that's critical. So even if somebody doesn't hear their situation being described right now, they should still contact you to see if they fit in. We know some businesses are trying to reopen after being closed for some time, especially hoping that tourism is going to pick up very soon.
Yes, definitely. And that is one of the purposes of the credit facility, as it allows you to sustain your business through the working capital during this period that we know that you've probably lost revenues or your revenues have been reduced. And in some cases, you might have even added expenses as you now have to comply to health and safety standards. So for this facility here, we have an interest rate starting at 6%, which again is very competitive, and repayment terms of up to 60 months, which can include a 12-month grace period if necessary. However, in addition to this, we even have payment frequencies that can also be suited to the business's cash flow, whether it be bi-monthly, quarterly, or annually. We know that most of these businesses that will be seeking to apply will have some type of difficulty, and therefore the repayment scheduling has to be catered to what they're able to afford.
Armin, you were going to add to that?
Yeah, I was just saying that it's not exactly like a second wave, but it's a continuation of the COVID program. And also, just to touch on the Empower Your Business new product loan that is launching, we've seen during the time of pandemic, a lot of different small businesses coming up. You know, people have been working, opening little businesses from home. You know, they're all on Instagram, on social media. We've seen them, body care products. We have planters. We have
so many entrepreneurs.
food.
Yeah.
Right. So these are the type of clients that we want to reach out to. Young adults. I know Gavin is an avid chef on the weekends, right? So if he wants to venture into a little food business, or no, I'm just kidding. Yeah, but
he's out of the age criteria now, so.
What? And he gave it away, right?
Oh man.
But
yeah,
it is.
belated birthdays.
I was going to say though, it's a specific age group that you're targeting.
Yes, like Erwin mentioned, the young adults is from 18 to 29, and then it's also open to women at any age, well, up to 70, because of life insurance. No, there's a standard age policy that is set from the insurance companies.
So women of all age and young adults or young men, young, from 18 to 29. I found that interesting because not very often are financial products catered to or created specifically for that young demographic. There are always concerns about financial sustainability and being able to pay back the money. What's the thought process that's gone in here?
So, like I said, so it could be for someone that has started a business or somebody that wants to start and might just need a little seed capital, if you may. So the loans would start at 2,000, and they go up to 40,000.
Okay.
So the risk is minimized. You need a guarantor. You know, usually when you come for a bigger loan, then you would have to propose a land certificate or some other collateral. So besides of a lower interest rate, you know, making it easier to apply, that's the segment that we want to target.
Okay.
Right. And just speaking on the topic of security or collateral that Mr. Cancino mentioned, we now count with a well-trained and experienced team that is very well versed in providing both technical and financial advice. For example, even in terms of security, we have a team basically that can conduct appraisal and conducts it at no additional cost to the client. In many cases, we have clients that come in, they had to spend $500-600 in conducting a valuation in order to use the property as security. We would just like to put out there that the DFC does this process for the client, so there's no need for them to make that investment. As long as you're approaching the DFC interested in a credit facility, you have a property that perhaps you want to pledge as security, we're able to take a look and we will conduct the groundwork in terms of valuations at no expense to the client.
Okay. And you have, as you said, so we have the young adults and women facility. We have the working capital for the tourism sector. And the third product, let's get into the details there. This is the housing, the home loans, I should say.
Yes, definitely. This is the We Serve Home Loans, and this is the facility that we have designed to cater specifically to public officers, which includes GOB uniform personnel. While we have this facility here, it is being done to include the BDF, police, Coast Guard, and so on. It's an option to give them financing at 100% for those who are seeking to perhaps construct their first home, so some that have their property and want to do their construction, which makes it easier for them. As I previously mentioned, in most cases, the contribution or your down payment is a big factor, because a lot of us might perhaps not have that $10,000 upfront, that $15,000 upfront to be able to do construction. So while you may have, or you have interest, you have the capacity to service the credit facility, you just don't have that savings that is necessary. So with this facility here, we are doing 100% financing, whereby that contribution is no longer necessary, and it gives you that flexibility, more options to be able to achieve what you truly want to do.
And you know, speaking generally a little bit, how do these programs sort of compare to what else is available in terms of, you know, what other institutions or something might be offering at this time?
Well, for one thing, the rates, Gavin, are lower than what the other institutions are offering, and what Erwin mentioned as well. If we go into having to pledge a collateral, we have an in-house valuation service that is done. We have an in-house legal department that prepares legal documents and so forth, so that at a minimum cost. I mean, we can't get away from the stamp duty that is paid to the government, so the other fees, the loan fees, would be at a reduced cost. So, you know, we're trying to make it affordable. We're trying to make the rates attractive, and at this time, especially at this time, helping the Belizean public at large.
All right.
Yeah, and just to add to that as well, if you would be familiar with the construction facilities, you would know that whenever we do construction, it is done in stages. So basically, at every stage, evaluation is required. So building a typical house can have 3 to 4 stages, whereby at each stage you would be looking to pay $500-600 for evaluation to be done. All of that is now absorbed by the DFC. And we cover those costs as we go along.
Correct.
All right, and how do people get more information? How do they apply? What's the process?
That's a good question. We have a fairly easy to read website, easy to access, and I'm glad you brought that up, because we have a student loan portal as well, where people that are interested in applying for student loans can actually start the application process through the portal. On the website as well, we have some home plans. We have 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom homes that are either wooden or out of concrete. And basically, these plans are at a reduced cost, approved already by the Central Building Authority. So, you know, that is already another savings, because to go get plans from an architect or, you know, and someone to draft that up, we're talking over $2,000 already. These plans, I believe, are up to, I think the most expensive one would be around $218 or so.
And yeah, as you said, it takes away one of the costs associated in building, which is getting that design. And you said it's already approved as by the institution.
Correct.
Fantastic.
So that makes things easier and quicker to get your loan approved and then start building. So I'd encourage anyone interested right now, as we approach the dry season, this is the opportune time. You know, come in. Give us a call, send us an email, let's get the conversation started. And this can be done countrywide, not only Belize City based. We have branches in San Pedro, Corozal, in Belmopan, service the Cairo district, and in Danriga, we have our colleague Luis Ruiz, who takes care of Dangriga or Stan Creek, and also the Toledo district.
And definitely, it's always helpful to have the website to start the application, as you said. And with people who are in the tourism industry, especially, it's good to know that you are once again commencing the working capital facility there as well. Thank you all for joining us this morning. Anything else you'd like for our viewers to know before we close?
Thanks for hosting us. Like I said, you know, you have that idea in your mind. Let's discuss it. Let's bring it to reality, because that is what that's our mandate. You know, to help develop Belize and be it in agriculture, tourism, education loans. You know, just check our website.
Well, I gotta tell you before we close, we've had quite a few children too who've had some great business ideas. Soon you'll have to look at an under 18 facility.
Well, possibly, who knows?
Just a new challenge to close you all off with. But we do appreciate you coming in. And as we said, all this information is available online as well. So people can check it out and see how they can take advantage. Stay safe.
Thank you.
All right.
And with that, we're going to be taking our final break. And when we come back, we're going to be having our wrap-up. So please stay tuned.
In these challenging times, the one thing that is certain is that the Belize Bank Limited is here for you. There is nothing more important than your health and safety, and we continue to make every effort to make banking safer for you. Our staff is working around the clock to make sure you can do your banking conveniently 24/7 using our mobile banking app and online banking and keeping ATMs up and running. We value your relationship with us and are here to provide the support you need. First responders are also out there 24/7. Thank you, healthcare workers, security forces, firefighters, caregivers. You are all appreciated. Stay safe. We will get through this together. The Belize Bank, our country, your bank.
Hello Belize. You may not be aware of the new travel requirements set in place by the Center of Disease Control and Prevention. Passengers traveling to the U.S. must present a negative COVID test or a documentation of having recovered from COVID-19 to travel to the U.S. In light of this, Maya, in partnership with Caring Hands Clinic, have established testing centers in all their municipal airports. Caring Hands Antigen Test Center is operational in San Pedro, Belize City, Dangriga, Placencia, and Hopkins. These testing facilities are staffed by licensed healthcare professionals, including doctors, registered nurses, and nurse practitioners. Testing is done using Abbott rapid test devices that are FDA approved and made in the USA. The service is safe, fast, affordable, and the close proximity of the centers makes them convenient. Walk-ins are welcomed, but appointments are encouraged. If you would like to make an appointment, please feel free to do so at Make your appointment, get tested, and in 15 minutes, you can get back to your vacation.
Es un hecho que puedes obtener servicios ilimitados con Smart. ¿Cansado de que se corte la línea cuando más necesitas estar conectado? Es un hecho que cuando te suscribes al plan de Smart Plus, obtienes llamadas, textos y datos ilimitados. Y también es un hecho que te puedes suscribir con un grupo de 5 miembros al plan Smart Share y hasta 40 miembros al plan Smart Enterprise para llamadas, textos y datos ilimitados. Smart tiene los verdaderos planes ilimitados. Es un hecho. Sé Smart y vive de forma Smart.
And we are back.
And we're just getting our show wrapped up this morning after a bunch of interesting conversations. We started off our show reflecting on a year of the pandemic in Belize. Of course, as we have been reminding you, March 23rd made the anniversary of the first COVID case that was declared in Belize. And we spoke with representatives from the Carl Huscher Memorial Hospital to talk all about what their experience over the past year has been like. So we want to say thank you to the CEO and both doctors who came in to lead that discussion this morning.
Really strong team that represented this morning, and I do want to say, just as we have been having this conversation all week looking at the impact of COVID, thank you to the healthcare workers who have sacrificed more than I think more people understand, putting themselves at risk, whether it was through testing or treating or just being in a healthcare setting, which was one of the high-risk spaces to be in. So thank you for all you've done so far, and we really appreciate it. And we also want to say thank you to the representatives of UNICEF Belize and the National Committee for Families and Children, talking about the Mix Plus survey, which is actually going to be launched very shortly, I think at 9:30, live on Facebook. So you'll be able to see some of the results of that data that they have compiled so far. Some of it very concerning when you look at the situation of household incomes and violence being faced by children. But what's important is that we have the data so we can be able to take actions, understanding the situation and who's most vulnerable.
Yes, absolutely. That's certainly some important information. It's a good thing that we are collecting that data, and hopefully it'll be used to inform some policies to help improve things for some of those who are affected. And we want to say a final thank you to the representatives from the Development Finance Corporation who came in to discuss some of their new facilities and loans and the continuation of some of their existing programs. And so we want to say thank you to them. And of course, if you want to learn more about all that the DFC is offering, the best place to go is to their website. You can even start the application process online through their portal for some of the loans. So you can look at them for contacting them to see how you can access their services and whether you qualify for one of their programs.
And that's all the time we have for today. So remember, if you want to contact us, send us an email at oye@channel5belize.com.
You can find us on Facebook at Open Your Eyes BZ and on Instagram at OIE Belize.
And remember to tune in tomorrow morning at 6:30 when you open your eyes.
Start your morning right.
Until then, keep your eyes, your mind,
and your heart open.
We'll see you soon. Enjoy your day, Belize.
Open Your Eyes was brought to you by the Belize Bank. Our country, your bank.